All right, so we're recording now. So your first assignment here is to actually what we've been talking about, additive synthesis, right? So the first thing we're gonna do is create a synthesizer in Max that uses additive synthesis, which is stringing together a ton of oscillators to get sound, all right? Now, a couple things that I've already uploaded for you for this class. If we go to week 11 on Thursday, you can see the mute button is right here. So this is something you have to include in every assignment. All right, I don't want to see any audio assignments without, because that has a limiter and a mute button for you to use, right? So the first thing you're going to do is download this mute button because you're going to use it in your project just as a fail-safe, right? In the audio, we always want to have a mute button, so we'll use it. So if I pull up the mute button, oops, that's not the right program. Max. I hate this new logo. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. So here's the mute button. So the easiest way to do this is that I can unlock this, right? Command E to unlock. And if I want, I could just start right in here and drag this down out of the way, right? Because what I need to use this as the final barrier before the speakers, right? So basically what's going to happen is, or if you want, you can also copy this command or Control C and then go up to New Patcher and then paste it in the new patcher, right? Just like you would with a Word document. And then save this, or you could just resave this into something else, okay? Now, I want to mention one more thing too. You have to actually start your free trial, right? So some of you, it says you might not say on your computer yet that you've started the free trial. You need to start that before you can save things, okay? So you could wait till Tuesday when it's due, but just remember, you cannot save this until it says trial 25 days remaining or whatever, okay? So obviously you're going to want to be able to save it, and you have to save it to turn it in. All you have to do is give an email to do a free trial. It's not, you don't have to give a credit card or anything, so, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. So basically the idea with the mute button is this, all right? We have our left input here. This is where the left speaker signal comes in, and this is where the right speaker comes in. And I've already connected to the Easy DAC, the Easy DAC, the Easy Digital Audio Converter, which is the speaker output, right? So if I were to turn this on, which you can do by just clicking the speaker here, it would work. Now, just so you know, this is what's called a encapsulation. See how there's a little P and it says mute and such? If I click on this, double click, it's going to open it up in another window. Okay? And this is just a way of taking some code and putting it in a package and hiding it a little bit, because things get really messy if you have all the code on the one page. So this is called an encapsulation. And all I have to do is double click on it and it will open up. The mute and such is going to open up into its own little window. But you don't need to do that. I just wanted you to know where the code was for the mute button, right? So what this says key selection. If you hit Shift M, you'll see the mute button turn red. If it's locked, okay? Remember, it has to be locked, which is the Command or Control E. And then Shift M is going to mute and unmute. Obviously, if it's red, it's muted. If it's not red, it's not muted. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
You want to download it right now?
What?
You want to download it right now?
Oh, you can. You don't have to. I'm just going to step you through how the assignment's going to go and how you're going to use this. I would recommend you kind of do this alone, but everyone's a different learner. If you want to just watch, you can just watch. I'm making a video of this, and you can watch that later if you want. So it's totally up to you. Okay? So again, Command E, Control E is your best friend to learn by hand, right? Because you're constantly locking and unlocking the patch incessantly to kind of work with it. What's cool about this too, any idea what load mess means? Any of you programmers? So what load mess does is it loads a value automatically when you open the patch. So it can be really annoying. Like imagine you have a big complicated synthesizer and there are all these empty boxes, and every time you open it you have to fill the boxes with numbers to make it work. This way you can load the number automatically every time, right? So if I had, for instance, a float box or an integer box, and I add a load mess, 454.55, actually that won't work, 455, let's do that. Every time this loaded up, the box would say 455 in it automatically. So it's a way of preloading data that you might need later, okay? So all I'm doing is loading the mute to be on, automatically be off by loading a 1. Okay, that's all that's happening. And then this is allocating the keys in what is that called? The key coding? What is that? When every key has a number. Anyone remember what the? No, that's different. Anyways, Shift M is 77. So that's how I know. That's why. It's basically looking for the number 77. When I type 677, it sends a 1 or a 0. What? Unicode, yeah, right. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this assignment then. It's to create a max patch that creates, oh, that's really bad writing. Create a max patch that makes an additive synthesizer, right? You should have at least 5 oscillators. Use case slider. So anytime you see something like this that's in brackets, that means that's an object. Okay, so that means that I can go over here to max and I can unlock and hit N for new and type K slider, and there it is. K slider is a keyboard. And as soon as you start typing K slider, it's going to fill in. And as soon as you hit enter, it's going to turn into a piano. Okay? So we're going to use the K slider to select notes or create a patch that is automated to play a MIDI sequence. So this is going to be cool and fun to do. And then add an envelope generator so that notes don't sound constantly. So there's a fair amount we're doing here. And please be aware that, you guys some of you are going to try and blast through this right now. You can, but the idea is that you probably won't do this right now, and you might just watch and then do it later. Okay? But I just want to make sure we can all get sound in Max and that it's working, all right? So Jalen, I would say yes, download the mute button, because I definitely want to make sure everyone is hearing Max and it's working, okay? And then at the bottom here, the YouTube video is going to be this video. Find a way to add the reverb and delay objects that are attached. So I'm also going to attach a reverb and a delay patch that you can bring into your max patch, and if you find a way to use those, they sound great, okay? And that'll be part of the next assignment as we do. We're only doing a couple, why does it say assignment 2? It should say assignment 1. Let me edit this. Oh. Can I? Oh, I can, look at that. All right, that's fixed. Great, so the first thing we want to do is create an additive synthesizer, all right? Because that's the simplest part of this. So let's delete this. First of all, I want to think about the objects in Max that make sound that we can use as oscillators, right? We think about oscillators as synthesizers. Saw waves, sine waves, triangle waves, square waves. And there are a bunch of different oscillators for this. So sound, oops. Remember, all of these objects are going to have a tilde after them, right? Because they are max, they are sound generators. So saw tilde is a possibility. Cycle tilde is the sine wave. It's weird, I know. You'd think it would be sine tilde, but it's not, because there's actually a sine tilde is something else. Then there's also tri tilde. And square, I don't remember all, I think it's SQAR tilde. It might be that. We'll have to look at it, okay? So those are the sound generators that we can use. And again, like remember, a lot of this is going to be creative up to you. You do what you want, right? Pick the ones you want. So the first thing I'm going to do then is to use I'm just going to use a cycle tilde. All right, let's see what the square is though. New. And then square. Oh, maybe it's not a square. Oh, you know what it is? I remember now. It's rectangle. There it is. A pulse wave, okay? So sorry, it's RECT. I don't remember every max object. There's 200 of them at least, okay? So let's take this sine wave, and remember we have to give it a signal of some kind, right? Because the first inlet is saying, what is the frequency of this oscillator? So the easiest thing right now, I'm just going to slap on here an integer box. The shortcut for integer box is I. I hit I, it makes an integer box, and then I just have to connect it with a chord, all right? Now I will say, and this probably seems obvious to you, but if you don't connect stuff with cords, it doesn't work, right? The data will not go to something else without a cable. And it can be really easy to miss a cable. So just be aware of that, right? Like, if you don't connect the cord, it's not sending the data, okay? Now, there are ways of sending data without cords, which is really useful. But just keep that in mind for now, that we need cables always. Great. So this is sending a signal in. And then I'm just going to add a gain tilde. So I N for new, and then gain. And then it auto-fills, enter. It's going to turn into a gain object. Right? And let's get to something that I haven't talked about either in this, and that's called the inspector. The inspector, did I talk about the inspector in the other video? I don't know if I did. The inspector is how we edit and change the parameters of something. And this might be another way that if you want to play around and do fun stuff, you can. Like, how did I get this blue box, right? The inspector, you'll see, is over here. Anytime you click on something, all of its parameters are posted over here. Okay, so if you see I click on my gain slider, it tells me that the gain value of this, first of all, over here, if I go to all, let's go to all, the color, like let's change the gain color value to this pretty red. I like the red over here. Okay, pick that dark red. And then down at the bottom, it'll tell you what the values are. So this gain slider is posting a 0 to 158. Okay? So if I want to know what that does, I can actually click and attach a integer box onto the bottom, and then if I show you, see what it does, 0 to 157. Oh, you have to lock it, and then you can interface with it, right? Command E, and then you can move it up and down, right? Yep. So that's the Command E, is so useful. Great. Okay, so let's attach the cycle to the gain slider. Okay? Just like that, because obviously we do not attach volume control, anything without a volume knob. And then I literally, all I would have to do to make this make sound is run this out. So I'm going to run it from here to here, and then here to here. So this is a very common mistake with students as well. Watch this. If I connect this cord here, you'll notice that this side turned gray. Why is it gray? It's not audio. Yeah, it's just it's the value of the gain slider, which can be useful to know, but it's not audio. So the thing to remember is that the cycle object is mono, right? It's not a stereo object. It's outputting mono to the volume controller and then mono out. So it doesn't become stereo until I split it right here. And now it's a stereo signal. Now it's really still mono because it's one sound, right? But it becomes stereo when it splits into left and right. Okay? So this will now make sound. If I lock it, if I go up to the options at the very top and go down to the audio status, this is going to, again, pull up that window, right, about all the audio inputs and outputs and what have you, right? So I'm going to click on audio status and pull up this window. Oh, man, they changed this on me. So if we have to go to the audio tab here, and then we're going to go to, well, mine is called Crestron. Yours is probably called MacBook speakers or something like that, right? Yeah? Okay? Just make sure that's clicked. Now, another thing that I would really recommend you click is these two buttons right here, overdrive and scheduler in audio interrupt. Any idea what those two things do? I mean, it's a stupid question. What they do is they prioritize rhythm in here. So what's really funny, if you don't have those connected, if you move the mouse too fast, you'll hear the tempo of it go down because the computer, basically Max, is not prioritizing rhythm. And so you want it to prioritize rhythm, and you turn those two on, just so that no matter what happens, it's not going to slow something down. Instead, it will drop samples or something like that if it has to prioritize data. Okay? Anyway, so let's close this. Lock it down, Command E, right? Turn on the Easy DAC down here. Easy DAC. And then you should hear sound if you you can go over the pitch, or sorry, yeah, the frequency here. You can click on it and hit 400, and it should start working. Right? Sorry, mine works. Does it work it? Oh, I hear one. So start typing right now. Yep, there you go. And hit enter. Yep, and now turn your volume up. So remember, your gain is going to be at 0 automatically. You'll need to turn it on. And you can see down at the bottom, it should be posting down here, right? That way you know there's actually sound posting. Is it working? It's just quiet. I bet if you crank that up over here. Yep. How's it going? Works? Great. It's fine. I know some of you aren't doing it. It's totally fine, right? You don't have to be doing it. Okay. So remember too, if you have any problems with this over the weekend, just send me an email. So anyways, we have sound now, right? Now the one thing that we can do as well is I'm going to turn this into stereo with the volume controllers. Well, maybe I'll give you a minute. Does everybody get sound that wants have sound? Anybody not getting sound? So you thought it should be making sound, it's not? Mm-hmm. Should you turn it up? No, it is posting. So it's fine. Is your speaker turned on? Yes. Or whatever? Oops, sorry. Did I do that? I did that. There it is. Hear it? Yep. Everybody else? Tyler, is it working? Okay. Where, Elisa, if you work, are you good? Elisa? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, are you not doing this? Okay, that's fine. Okay, remember, I'm recording everything here, right? So there will be a video to watch. Okay. So I am actually going to switch this to stereo now, okay? And what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this volume. It's really useful to duplicate things. And the easiest way to do it is to option drag, right? I can lasso something, option drag, and make another one. This is very useful for like duplicating stuff. So you'll notice now I have two volume controllers, right? And what I want to do is I want to map this gain level to the other one. And so I do that by running a cable from the left input, the right input, into the top. And now watch. Right? So now I have a stereo gain, which is nice. Wow, why isn't that letting me? Oh, it is. Okay. Oop. And what I'll do then is run this signal into left and right and run it out to the left channel. Okay, so see the difference of what I did here? Now I just moved where the mono starts. Okay? Okay, let's make this, I mean, this is super boring right now, right? Let's make something that sounds better and more interesting. So your assignment is to use the K slider, okay? So I'm going to type new and then K and then slide. Instantly, K slider should pop up. Remember, new is N and then K, right? And then I hit enter and there it is. I have a keyboard. Okay? Now, if any of you have a MIDI keyboard at home or in your dorm? Yeah? Okay. So if you want to use your MIDI keyboard, you can use the note in object and connect it to the top. And then your MIDI keyboard will automatically be recognized and it'll work. Okay? But we don't need it. We're not going to use it, but you can. So what do you know what values come out of a keyboard like this? They have since the early 80s. The MIDI numbers. Right? So watch this. If I connect a integer box by, again, hitting I, and I lock it down, middle C is 60. 48 is the octave below. 72 is the octave above, right? So your MIDI keyboard is actually sending a MIDI number to any sort, and like into Logic or Ableton or whatever you might use. It's sending a MIDI number. So the problem then, of course, well, you tell me, what happens if I connect this to the cycle? Is this going to work? Yeah.
Essentially going to get like really close harmonics next to each other. You're not going to have steps.
Right. So remember, the MIDI numbers are not the frequencies. And the cycle object is saying, I want frequencies, but I'm sending it a MIDI number, right? In fact, I know that this C is 261 hertz. Actually, I think it's this C. 261 hertz. It's not 48 hertz, right? So yeah, if I lock this down now and play it, it's going to sound really low and muddy, right? Because it's posting MIDI numbers, not this. So we could do some math, but that's always not favorable. We're just going to use an object that makes the math for us. It's called the MTOF object. And you can see here what it does. It converts a MIDI note number to a frequency. Enter. And then I'm going to attach this right here. And then I'm just going to add another integer box just so we can actually make it, I'll make it a float, F, just so we can see the frequency now. And then connect that to the cycle. Right? So now, sorry, it's kind of loud. Right? So now it should work, right? Is it working? Just a float box. If you hit F, it'll make a float box. Right? Integer box is I, that's with no decimals. The float box gives me the float numbers. You don't really need them, but you can see that middle C, or that C is actually 61.5 hertz, really. Okay? So the nice thing too, remember, anytime I can hit Shift M and it'll stop playing because it's muted. Right? Shift M is going to mute this. Okay? Any questions so far? This is super easy, huh? So far, yeah. So let's actually make a more complex sound. Let's actually make something that does the harmonic series. You guys remember what the harmonic series is? What is it? The natural harmonic series. You remember we talked about it like week 1. Yeah. Yes, integer multiples of the fundamental. Frequency times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6, up to 11 is the most common thing, right? So that is, and actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to get rid of this. Well, no, that's fine. We'll leave these as our main volume controllers. We'll leave them at the bottom. And let's take these chords out. So this cycle here is going to be our fundamental, right? Remember, I can type C for comment and type fundamental. And that way I know this is the fundamental at all times. Okay? But what I want to do now is multiply this frequency by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Obviously not by 1, but by those other numbers. So let's take cycle, option, drag, and And then I'm going to make multiply, which is the asterisk key, right? It's the shift 8. And then we're going to go times 2. And I'm going to make a decimal. And then times 3. And I'm just, again, option dragging to make more of these. Eights. Now let's just do 8. It's enough. What command? Yeah, for these numbers? For this number here?
No.
For these. These are multiply objects. So all I do is hit N for new and then shift 8 gives you that asterisk. And I don't know if you guys know in math they use the asterisk a lot, right? Yeah, it's multiplication. And then a really important thing to remember too, and I forgot to mention this, I've never mentioned this, the space is so important in Max, okay? Max recognizes the space as a divider of data. So you'll notice all I did was take the space out of the 2, and now it says, I don't know what an asterisk 2 is. Because an asterisk 2 is not an object in Max. But see what I'm saying? See what happened? So, I mean, it can be really frustrating. You're like trying to make something work and you realize, oh, I just forgot a space here, and that's the problem. Okay? So, cycle. Let's just keep, and let me just spread these out. And then add more cycles. So remember, these cycles can be other things. Let's make this one a saw. Let's make this one a rectangle. Let's make this one a saw. You don't have to, but you can. Okay? So now I need to connect this box, which is the frequency. And remember, this box is totally arbitrary. I could just run this MTOF straight there. Like the box is just there to show me the data. Doesn't mean anything. In fact, most of the time when I make programs, I take the boxes out after a while because it's just more like takes more data to do that, right? Or more taxing on the CPU. So, but we'll run these in here. If I hold down Shift and click on here, I can just go to all of these like this. We'll do number 8. Okay, and then I need to connect these, right? Again, like I'm not going to multiply the signal if I don't connect it to the saw object. I will not get any data. So don't forget these little tiny cords that are connecting the saw to its multiplier.
How do you let go of the cord after you press shift?
You hit escape. Yeah.
I was panicking.
So now the easiest thing here is we're going to add another gain slider just to control everything. It's still mono, so I'm going to option drag another gain. I'm going to turn it sideways. I can do that just by resizing it from the bottom. And I'm going to stick this right here. You know, I can also just drag this down a little bit to get it out of the way, right? And then I can move this down. So then I need to connect all of these cycle objects to my gain, right? Because if I don't, they won't make sound. Okay? And then obviously I need to connect this gain to both gains. The other gains, just, you know, we just have extra gains, whatever. I don't technically need these, right? I could take them out and just connect this straight to the mute and such. So this should now give us, I mean, first of all, tell me what's going to happen to the sound. Tell me how is it going to be different? What? What do you think?
Much louder.
Much louder is the first thing, right? Because we went from 1 oscillator to 8. So it's going to be way louder. So It's always good to start this with at 0, right? You can always turn this up, but remember, it's going to be louder because it's turned up so high. There are now 8 oscillators. Imagine if there were 100 oscillators, right? Remember though, inside the mute button, there are limiters. See this limiter right here? This is going to prevent it to ever get too loud. But just, now you have it. So if I'm going to lock this down, unmute, and the thing is, I'm going to have to right now there are no numbers inside these oscillators, so I have to put my notes again. So let's do this. There's my saw wave. And there it is, right? Okay? So we've done a lot of this assignment already, right? At this point, you've created an added synthesizer. Now, the cool thing would be to change it up. There's so many different things you could do. How would I make it so that every oscillator had a different volume control?
You could add a bunch of gains.
Yeah, that's exactly what you would do. You would, instead of have these run like this, I would just make another gain. Well, let's copy the same gain because I like the red. I love my red gain. I always have a red gain. I can make a small one, and every oscillator can have its own gain. Okay, let me grab these two and copy them over here. Oops, I messed that up. See what happened? I just made a mistake. Look at this one. I grabbed this quickly, and I grabbed the wrong outlet on this volume, right? It automatically defaulted to the wrong one. So, there's just a lot of little things like that happen. You have to be careful about how you do this. Or you just have to be careful of what you're doing because, it's easy to make a tiny mistake like that, and then something doesn't work. So yeah, and then I reconnect these, and now all these gain sliders have their own volume controllers, right? And I can, oh, you know what I keep forgetting too? I never connected my fundamental. So let me grab the fundamental too. So the fundamental doesn't have a volume controller, but now all the other harmonics do. Right? So that's kind of fun. So the next thing that you have to do here is to automate this so that it plays something, right? Wasn't that right, what I say? Oh, there's two things we're going to do. Yes, that is automated to play a MIDI sequence. Okay? So we're going to do that up here at the keyboard. So right now, the keyboard is outputting these numbers, right? It's outputting like 60, 61, 62, or what have you. We can also send it some information like that. Okay? First of all, can I go on? Anyone have any questions? Is this working? Yeah? Okay. Does anyone feel lost at this point? You're doing okay? Yeah? Is it working? So none of them are connected here, right? They're all...
Yeah, I just made it.
Oh, okay. So then you get rid of all those wires and rewire them into these. Right? Easiest way, if you hold down Option, you can select all of these like this.
And then I just...
Yep, that goes into that one. Yep. Yep. And then all of those need to go. Just get rid of those. Do this. And then run each of them into 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You have a ton of cases, so that doesn't matter, right? And then it should work. Looks good otherwise. Working? Cool. Everybody doing all right? So, what we're going to do now is make a sequence on the keyboard. Okay? And what I really want from you guys is what I'm basically doing is the assignment right now. I'm hoping you'll take it home and do something cool with it, right? You're all super smart people, like be creative with it. Now that you have some basics, figure out how to do something interesting. Okay? So, just like with this keyboard, if I send it a value, for instance, of 40, if I lock this and send a 40, it's going to go to the note 40. Okay? So, I'm going to use that to generate a sequence. So, we're going to use a bunch of objects. The first one is going to be the toggle. If I hit the T key, it's going to make a toggle. And that's sending a 0 or a 1, right? And this is going to be used to turn on a metro, which is a metronome. Okay? So let's do metronome 500. And I'm going to connect that. And again, now it's going to make a metronome that's at the basically at a BPM of 120, right? Because it's 500 milliseconds. That means 2 every second. That means 120 beats per minute. That means 120 is the tempo, right? So what I want to do now, and I can just show you that with a bang. If you hit B, it'll make a bang, and then you can attach the bang. You can lock it, turn on the metro, and you'll see it going. Okay? So remember, a bang is useful, but a bang is going to give the keyboard nothing, right? What does the keyboard need? It needs MIDI numbers. So this is a common mistake in Macs where you're like, it's not working. And it's like, well, you're sending a bang to an integer box, and the integer box is, I don't know what the hell to do with that. I need a number, right? The keyboard is looking for numbers. So we need to send it numbers. So we need to generate a list of numbers somehow. And we're going to do that with the select object and a counter. So I'm going to make N for new and hit counter. Can you guess what the counter does? It counts, yes. So if I do 1 through 4, 1 space 4, and remember, I have to have a space between the 1 and the 4, or it won't work. It's recognizing that I'm saying start on number 1 and end on number 4. Okay? So if I connect the counter now to the metro, and I'm just going to move all this up a little bit, you can imagine what it's going to do. It's going to now count from 1 to 4 forever. Right? Now I could connect this to the keyboard, although you won't see the notes because the notes are way off the keyboard. I think it starts at 36. But it's basically posting a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's fine and all, but those are very low notes, and they're not useful, right? So let's actually generate a melody of some kind with this. So the easiest way to do that is to use the select object. And we're going to type in the numbers 1 space 2 space 3 space 4. And I did this on Tuesday as well, and connect that to there. And remember, what the select does is it says, if the number posting is a 1, then send it out this outlet. If it's a number 2, send it out this outlet. If it's a number 3, if it's a number 4, etc. So I can even connect bangs on these, right? And we will see now, basically I've created an array where the data is like coming out of this in order. Yeah? So now we need to send actual values, right? Like these bangs, again, are not useful to the computer, or they're not useful to the piano. So the easiest way to do that is to use this. So there are several ways. There's something called a message. If I hit M, if you see how message is a little gray box like this, I could type 60. Okay? It's fine. So if I connect the 60 here, and then maybe a 63, notice that this message box is different than an object box, right? It's not the same thing. It's called a message box specifically. Now I can also use something else. I can type new and trigger 67. And this is an object that triggers things. And here it's going to trigger the number 67. I'm just showing you another way of doing it. Either of these works, right? And then the last one, let's do 72. So if I put these in here now, you'll see it's going to start working right away. It's going to start playing a C minor triad. Right? So you can imagine I can change these numbers if I want to get a different chord, right? But right now, it sounds like this. Unmute. Right? So this is just going to play forever. If I wanted to change the tempo, what would I do? What? Well, the metronome's here, right? So I could just change to 500. I can also, remember, add an integer box and connect it to this outlet and then change this to 100. Right? Doesn't work going backwards, apparently. Okay? So, I mean, obviously, what would I do if I wanted to have 8 notes? First of all, there are several steps, right? What would be the first thing? 8 notes. What?
Add more to the select box.
Yes, but also somewhere before that, the counter has to also go to 8, right? Because right now, if I could add more to the select, but it's still going to count to 1 to 4, right? So yeah, we could just go in here but I'll start with what you're saying, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you'll notice now I have a bunch more outlets, right? And then counter, I'm going to change this to an 8. All right, and then I'm also going to grab this and just option drag over, man. Option drag is the best. And then connect these. Connect all of these. And now we have, actually, because it's the same notes, we're going to go in here and change these notes, right? Let's do 74, 75, 84, and 48. Now, I happen to know my MIDI numbers really well because I've used them many for years, right? But listen to what it's doing now. Right? I want to change the sound again, right? Yeah? So that sounds pretty cool. It's very chiptune-y. It's very like
Well, yeah, very
very
cheap, like,
simple,
you
right?
download it out, it sounds like one of the, like, intro songs too.
So what if I wanted to play all the notes down an octave with one change? How could I do that? Yeah.
Can you take the output of the keyboard and divide it by 2?
There's lots of ways. What did you say? Where? So there's so many places. What did you say again?
Take the output of the keyboard and divide by 2.
Yes, so I could take the MIDI numbers. Before the MIDI numbers turn into frequencies, I could subtract 12. Right? If I divided by 2 there, it would, yeah, it would be funkier. But I could also do what you said, go after the thing and take the frequency and divide it by 2. Right? So either one of those works. So all I have to do here is, and I keep pushing this down, right? I can just select all of this and move it down a little bit to give myself more space. So let's do that. I'm going to go multiply by 2 right here. And if I hold down Shift, watch what I can do. I can click it in and drop it, and it'll like insert itself right in there. Okay? Or what I could do is go after, actually we were doing divide, weren't we? Were we doing it in half, not multiplying it by 2?
You know, we like we downstream of the end.
Right. So yes, I could also go after the MTOF and divide. Divide is this by 2. Okay? That's what divide looks like. It looks like this. So this is divide, that's multiply. Yeah.
How did you add the numbers with the rounded corners?
It's just this right here.
Yeah.
It is a message box M will create it. You don't need those. You could use triggers every time. I use trigger all the time. I actually don't use this message box a lot. Okay. So let's just multiply this by 2. What's really cool now is actually we could remember, actually let's do 2 decimal just to make this a float number because I'm going to do something else. We could also use some message boxes to multiply, to change this to other things. 0.5, let's change this to 3, and let's change this to 1.5. So watch what happens now. If I connect these here, I can now replace that 2 with other numbers. Uh-oh.
The two's on the wrong side of the, that's the
Oh! Yes. You did exactly I did exactly what I said not to do, right? Yes. So the 2 here, what's happening here is that we're taking these MIDI numbers and halving them. What we need to do is half the frequency, right? So I'm going to grab this. Let's just pull it out of here. I can actually pull it out. I thought I could just, well, I'll just delete it. It needs to come down here, right? So hold down Shift, I can insert it here. So let's put that back on there and then connect this like this. So now the frequency, which comes out of the MTOF, is getting multiplied by whatever number is in there, and it can be these numbers. So this should sound correct now. Right? And then we might want to have a 1 in here just to return this to 1. Okay? So that's kind of cool. I mean, the cool thing too is we could automate this. How can I automate what's happening here with these 4? Trigger them somehow, right? Yeah.
When you are pressing on like 3 or 1.5, is that 3 times the original value? So 3 times the original value of the key of C minor, or is it based off of whatever your last input was? Like, is it 3 times the 0.5? Does that make sense?
No, it's replacing the 2.
Okay,
So the 2 becomes a 3, so it's multiplying it then by 3.
I see.
Or by 0.5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways that we could automate this. The easiest way is to use something like the select up here, all right? I'm going to option drag this part down here just to copy it. And I'm going to delete these first, right? We have 4 possibilities here, so there they are. I'm going to delete these at the bottom too. So all that I have now is this select like this. Okay? So now though, instead of using counter, we're going to use random. And I'm going to type in 4. Okay? Now the problem with random is that it's going to generate numbers between 0 and 3. So that is a problem with our 1 through 4, right? Now we could, how can we fix this? There are several ways. Yeah. Sure, that's one way. What's the other way? Yeah.
Add a +1.
Add a +1, yeah. So we could just add +1 here. And that means when the 0 comes out, it's going to turn into a 1, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you connect it, right? So you know, Max, I love that's a modular language and is like everything is visual, but it can turn into a hot mess really fast in terms of its look, right? So if I now grab the metronome, I can grab this same metro and drag it down here onto the random. And now you can see it's randomizing these values, right? Does that make sense? No, it's fine. And then what I can do is just connect these here, right? Now, it might be producing too many random values. It's like, I don't want it to change so much. So maybe we give this its own metronome, right? Metro, maybe, let's do 2000, because that's going to be every 2 seconds. And I will actually just connect this to the same toggle at the top as the top. And then connect all these over here. Oops. Well, that was weird. Okay, yeah. Okay, now it's posting. You know, this really doesn't sound bad. When you add reverb and delay, it suddenly sounds amazing. Like, it just makes it so much more volumetric and awesome. So, any questions so far? I think we've probably done enough of this for today. And I think I'm going to take the envelope off the assignment. I don't want you to do an envelope on there. We're just going to, an envelope allows you, I mean, if someone wants to try that, figure out how to use an envelope. Okay? What is an envelope? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's the ADSR, the attack, decay, sustain, and release of a sound. And it makes it so that it's not, right now this is continuous, right? It never stops. It's always playing. There's no way to stop the sound. There's no way to go bump, 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 or like percuss it, or make it long, or it's all the same. We can do that on Tuesday. But I do want you, to figure out, so let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to be posting a reverb and a delay. So if we go to Max, or where is this, Max?
One thing I missed was getting that second Metro, the Metro 2000. Did you just connect it directly from?
I connected it to the toggle as well. So when I turn on the toggle, they both come on.
Do I have to turn off the toggle and then turn it back on?
Yeah, you do.
Gotcha. Okay.
To make it fire up. Yeah. So, everyone that did this, were you able to follow along and like make it work? I mean, I think some of you quit halfway through. You're like, I'd just rather watch, which is fine. I'm making a video. So, there's just so many possibilities now, right? Like imagine, what if we wanted to have 2 different chords? How would you do a different chord? What do you think? Any ideas? Like what normally would happen? How would you, if you think about, how could I switch this to another chord? I just gave away the answer. A switch. Right? So, there is something called a switch. Oh shit, what's it really called? Switch? Yeah, there's a graphic one that's better though. If we go up here to, where is it? Here it is. So this is a really cool object called the switch. Okay? And again, this is just for you, if you want to try something different. Imagine these 2 chords are different, right? They're not the same. What I do is I send the data into here. Is that right? No. Sorry, I send the data into here. The first inlet is whether or not there's a 0 or a 1 coming in. So watch this. If I connect a toggle to it, it's going to post a 0 or a 1. See what it's doing? It's opening and closing the switch, or switching the switch. Right? So basically what I would do is connect all these chords. all of the chords to my keyboard like this. I'm holding down Shift. It makes it way easier. Yeah.
Just hold over it for a little bit, like a time thing. Like is your
No, I clicked on it and hit Shift, and now it's like,
right.
if I hold down, I'm just clicking, click, 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 and it drops one every time. So anyway, so now this will go to this keyboard, and this will go to this select. Sorry, right? So now, look it, you can see it's already happened. In fact, let's just change this chord. It'll take 2 seconds. Let's make this 65. 67's fine. Let's make this a 74 again. 70, what is that? 75. Trying to remember my mini numbers. 77, I think. 86, and let's do 48. So now, now we have 2 chords, and I can switch to the other chord and then go back. Oh, it's also changing up here, right? Kind of don't love this, doing this. Let's just make this a 1. So, you can see how really quickly you can create complexity, right? You just kind of take off of this and go nuts and do all kinds of cool stuff.
The counter, 8-1, when you go backwards.
Good question. I don't know. 8-1. No.
How did you get the 238 from top to
Oh, I made an integer box and just connected it. Right?
If you wanted to play a whole note and then, sorry, not a whole note, a quarter note, and then the rest is 8 notes, do you just get rid of the second select so that the first, or the second bang so that the first bang sustains for 2? And then.
You could do that, yeah.
Here's the second sort.
So if I got, yeah, Tyler, what else?
You could give each select a metro that's half the tempo.
Sure.
of the select.
The only problem with that is that this whole instrument is mono. It's only one sound at a time.
Yeah.
So you can't hold a note and play other notes. But how would you get around that? You could make a whole nother synth for the other metro.
And then add
And then
the
put them
frequencies.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty simple.
Would be adding or multiplying frequencies if you're trying to get the sound of the chord.
Well, it depends. I would just go with MIDI notes and their notes
Oh.
values because it would get very complicated. If you want to do all major triads, you can figure the math out, like the ratio between every third. But so there's just so many possibilities here too. We could very easily, and let me show you something that's really useful. Encapsulation, okay? Very quickly you can see this is kind of turned into a hot mess, right? And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I could select all of this right here and hit Shift Command E, and look what it did. It just made this a single line, right? And I can name this like chords. And then look, there it is. So the cool thing about this is that my chords now live in this little box, and I can easily double click on it to open it and see it. But it's now kind of hidden away in a folder where it's cleaned up the UI a bunch, right? And the really cool stuff about this, like watch this. We could go down here, encapsulate all of this, Shift Command E, and I can also encapsulate if I go up to Edit, Encapsulate. Okay? But if I do that, watch Shift Command E, I could write synth here, synth. And now watch, I could go, whoa, let's just like make a lot of oscillators. really fast. Right? Now, obviously, those need data, and you probably have to do something with them. But now we just went from 8 oscillators to 64 oscillators in a second, right? And so there's just a lot of control over what the things you can do.
Are those making new files every time you make an encapsulated really meter? Like it's still in the same.
It's all in the same file, yeah. It's not an abstraction, which is what you asked about on Tuesday, right? That's different. All right, how does this all feel to you guys? Do you hate this? Is it kind of interesting?
It's pretty cool.
It's probably not for everyone.
I'm struggling.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, but like.
Well, the cool thing about this, I know you're kind of like, dude, this is an instruments class. Where's the violins again? Let me just go back to the violins. The cool thing about this is that we're talking about the nuts and bolts of synthesis, right? How synthesizers are made from scratch.
Like that concept's interesting. It's nice that at least it's visual, because if this was straight on code,
I know. I can't do the code stuff. So remember, I'm making a video of this whole thing, and I really recommend you sit down with the video and do it by hand with the video playing. Pause the video when you need to, and construct the thing. Yeah?
How did you put the keyboard again?
How did I make it?
Yeah.
It's the K slider.
Okay.
So N and then K slide. Now remember, if you're trying to find max objects, you can go up here to these little tabs and see where it says sliders. Here's the K slider. And if you click on this, or you can drag it down here and you'll get one. So these are really useful up here for finding things like sliders and knobs and I mean, I just imagine, I know some of you are going to be interested, kind of go nuts with this and do some neat stuff, right? The reverb and delay. Let me mention that real quick and then you can go. So the reverb and delay, what they look like is this. I meant to find that. Reverb is here, and it's also just, first of all, it's a big encapsulation. Well, no, it's not. It's big in here. I didn't make this. I stole it. So don't look at me. Anyways, I can open this, Command C and Command V, and there it is, right? And you can see it has an in for left, in for right, out for left, out for right. Okay? And so you can imagine I can probably just take this signal and stick it right over here and run it into here, and it might work. Sure does. Sounds so much better, doesn't it? So, and then there's a delay too. So, figure out a way to put knobs on the reverb, right? And the delay looks the same basically as this. All right, please email me if you have questions. Email me too. If you're like, dude, I can't make this work. Add your patch to the email, right? Patches are literally kilobytes in size. And you can send them to me. Send me a picture and say, why doesn't this work? I guarantee you I can tell in 2 seconds. Pictures are really useful. If you email and say, I can't make this work, I can't make this thing work. What thing? I can't see it, I don't know. I need a picture or the file. Okay? All righty. Have a good weekend.